The sheriffs strongly support our citizens' right, protected right, to bear arms under the Second Amendment, and the National Sheriff's Association does not support any laws that deprive the citizen of the rights provided under the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
No, papá, no.
Véngate, hijo. Venga mi muerte.
Well, yeah, it's getting tough out there. Yeah, no doubt. I work in home invasions mostly. Some murder, occasional rape if she's hot, or really bitchy. And I'm a huge advocate of gun control, absolutely. Competition is stiff, and it doesn't help that every time I kick in a door or smash a window, that I face the possibility of being shot and killed. Listen, the fact is, allowing citizens to own guns creates a hostile work environment for me and my associates. No one should have to work under those conditions. I say make them all illegal, absolutely. Make all gun ownership illegal. I mean, I break the law for a living. I'm a professional, so it doesn't really bother me. I mean, but personally, knowing that most homeowners don't have guns, that would make me a lot more comfortable, more confident, and it would surely increase productivity. No doubt. No doubt.
I'm making a response video on gun control that was just posted as a 313 for the week of Wednesday this week by Edge. I want to explain the biblical position so that people understand it. But let me first say my personal attitude so you know that the biblical position and my personal attitude are not the same. My personal attitude toward guns and violence as in general is anti. I was abused as a kid. I was beaten up very severely and had to go to the hospital. So violence is not exactly something I like. I know what it feels like. On the other hand, God says sometimes you have to fight. You cannot fight if you are not trained. And he spent 400 years of Israel's life training them to fight. And then they were a bunch of wimpy cowards when he took them out of Egypt. So he made them run around 40 years in the land because they were wimpy cowards. Go read the story. That's what Book of Numbers means. It means numbers of troops. So if you want to be a wimpy Christian and say, oh, well, gun control isn't that bad. We already have gun control anyway. And besides, you know, this will stop the criminals. You're living in a dream world. And you're anti-God. Most of the Bible's text is about fighting. Isaiah 63, the Lord alone comes from Basra at the second advent, and he wipes out 100, well, no, that was Sennacherib. He wipes out everybody that's in Israel, in the land, who's fighting Israel, in one blow all by himself. That's Isaiah 63, verses 1 through 10. And he wiped out 180,000 of Sennacherib's army camped out in front of Hezekiah, all in one day. He has no compunction about killing where it's warranted. So there are times to kill and there's a time for peace. We all know that from Proverbs. But we don't seem to care to analyze which is which. And we take one side or the other. Either we're hawkish or we're peaceniks. The Bible is always in the middle. There's always a yes and a no. And you have to know the boundaries or you're a bad Christian. Now, what are the boundaries? The boundaries are first that you have to train. You have to be able to wield your weapon. You have to know when it's right and when it's wrong. You have to know the rules, which means you have to know the Bible. Why did God command David to fight? David went to God every time with the Urim and the Thummim. That was the breastplate that the priest wore, and the stones lit up. Okay, yes, no, on the shoulders, and then there were the 12 tribes on the ephod, the thing that covered the guy's chest. Okay, where do I go up or do I not go up? The story's all in 2 Samuel. Read it yourself. And he trained and he worked hard at it and he killed 1,000 Philistines at God's command. You have to learn how to fight, and then you have to learn how to stop. That's the difference between a murderer and a professional soldier. A professional soldier does it because it's his job. A murderer does it because he likes how it feels. You can't like how killing feels and do a good job. I'm sorry. But if you say, oh, guns are bad because there's some teenager who killed a bunch of kids at a school, so we should take away all the guns and that will stop the crime. No, it won't. Think, Bible, ask God. Yes, we fight this time. No, we don't fight that time. Unless you want another Hitler and another Munich and another set of terrorists. I'm telling you right now, I hate guns more than anybody. I don't even want to touch them. I hate violence more than anybody. I've been stabbed. I know how it feels. But I would have absolutely zero compunction to kill somebody who tried to enter my house. Zero compunction if I was in the military, which I don't believe women are supposed to be, but if it were true, I would have zero compunction about killing the enemy. I wouldn't care about it one way or the other. It's my job. You have a job. There's a lot of things about your job you don't like. Killing is not an enjoyable thing to a sane person, but it has to be done. Just as when the puppy pees on the carpet, if you talk nice to the puppy, he'll do it again. There are people in this world who, unless you are nasty to them, they will not learn. And the maximum nastiness is when a nation goes to war at you and wants to take your children away from you. Israel was ordered into the land because the people who were there were child-burning Canaanites. So, God ordered them wiped out. My question to God has always been, why did you wait so long? There's a time for niceness, and there's a time when not. And if you want to know what those times are, you better start reading your Bible on when they fought and when they didn't. About how when Saul was merciful to one of the kings that he beat, how Samuel said, okay, God's tearing the kingdom away from you, and gave it to David, who fought all of his life. And to say that, well, the temple couldn't be built in David's day because he was a bad boy, he was a warrior. You don't know half the story about David. David got 3 time grants of 1,000 years from God, and 3 490-year time grants, and you wouldn't even be here if he didn't do that fighting at God's order. You don't believe that? Go look at my videos on the Pauline Anaphora timeline update. See how Paul is reconciling time to David. Christ was born based on 1,000 years from David, the most warlike king in the Old Testament. So that's what God thinks of war. The reason why he waited until David was dead had to do with the timing, not because David was a warlike king. Learn your Bible and stop spitting on it. Peace out.
According to FBI crime stats for 2011, there were 12,664 homicides in the U.S. Of those, 8,583 were caused by firearms. But of those, 400 are listed as justifiable homicide by law enforcement, 260 justifiable homicide by private citizens. On the other hand, it is true that percentage-wise, Britain has a lower gun homicide rate. With a population of 62.6 million, Great Britain saw 59 gun-related homicides for 2011. Still not the 35 Piers Morgan keeps citing. But that shouldn't be surprising that the gun homicide rate in a country that bans guns would be lower than in a country where guns are not banned. Where the argument falls apart is when you attempt to claim that fewer guns equals less crime. The U.S. has the highest gun ownership rate in the world, an average of 88 guns per 100 people. That puts it first in the world for gun ownership. Yemen is second with 54.8 guns per 100 people. So that means the U.S. has the highest gun murder rate as well, right? Well, no. Honduras, El Salvador, and Jamaica have higher rates. So do 24 other countries. The U.S., despite being number 1 in gun ownership, is number 28 in gun homicide with a rate of 2.97 per 100,000 people. Of course, Piers Morgan isn't calling for the U.S. to be more like El Salvador and Honduras. He's calling for us to be more like Great Britain. So what do the numbers look like there? The UK has the second highest overall crime rate in the EU. The UK has the 5th highest robbery rate, the 4th highest burglary rate. But more importantly, the EU named Britain as the most violent country in the EU. In the UK, there are 2,034 violent crimes per 100,000 people. That puts it way ahead of even South Africa, with a rate of 1,609 per 100,000. In the United States, we're not even in the top 10. The U.S. has a violent crime rate of 466 crimes per 100,000 residents. So what this means for you is that while people like Morgan insist that the U.S. can learn from Great Britain, well, maybe we can. What we might learn is that violent crime is not the result of a gun or any tool. It is the result of the heart of men and women.